Gregory Peck has a mustache so strong it cost the studio millions, because this week it's the Gunfighter from 1950.
A reformed bandit, haunted by his past, tries to reconcile with his estranged wife.
So when you said this film to me, first of all, I saw the picture and I was like, Lee Van Cleef, sweet. Had no idea this was Gregory Peck with that awesome mustache, which apparently the studio head was completely against him having. Didn't like it at all. In those days, you get the movie star in and you don't want to put a big mustache covering up half his face. But Gregory Peck was really insistent on, he wanted this like authentic looking mustache from the era. The studio boss was away on holiday or just out of the country for most of the filming, so by the time he got back, pretty much the whole film had been completed using the mustache. Film actually then bombed at the box office, and the studio head was positive the mustache was to blame, and he told Gregory Peck later that it cost him millions. I think it's a great tash though, and it's not Lee Van Cleef, but to be honest, even better, Gregory Peck. And I love this era of westerns that gets overshadowed by the spaghetti western genre these days more, I think, especially because of how much those eras have been publicized and romanticized and brought back to life by Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez and other famous directors of the 90s and onwards. But I love this era of western filmmaking and filmmaking in general. Like, the moment this film starts, you know you're getting a 50s film. You get that 50s nostalgia. You get that classic 1950s credit style that every single film copies. You have that classic 1950s score, the same musical score that seems to be used in every single film. In fact, this was reused from, I believe, a Western series from a few years earlier. You get that same Western 50s aesthetic, actually, with the main town high street that we see throughout the film. If you probably recognise it's actually the exact same one from the Oxbow incident. So yeah, so many of the scores and the stylistic choices and the aesthetic choices and literally the sets were reused from this era of filmmaking. And, you know, it's pre-60s and 70s when directors really got to go buck wild and experiment with stuff. So a lot of time the filming and camera choices, the acting styles are pretty similar. You basically know what you're getting when you get a 50s film. Something so comforting and nice about that. As soon as it gets into the film, I'm just like, I can just settle down. I'm like, I know what's in store, but in a good way.
I've seen better fights than this at a prayer meet. To me, like they ain't got as much spirit as they used to.
I go for these eyes.
I love the way that in this era of films, the sets, as you talked about, are really simple, and the acting style, even if they're trying to like start a fight to kill someone, there seems to be like a real innocence to it. We'll never get that in films again, and it's just so nostalgic to watch.
It is brilliant, and the only time you get it is either when it's a parody or they're, I don't know, I guess probably parody is the only time you get it. But it's a shame, like obviously it's hard for even successful filmmakers to get a bit of leeway to experiment in modern cinema, and it's a lot of money on the line, so you understand it is a business. But that's one thing about AI that might be good, where you get to just experiment on the cheap more. Why can't you just make a 1950s style movie with 1950s style acting, but it's not a joke, you're just making a film that way?
Do you know what, I did watch a film recently that done it well. Have you seen Mank on Netflix? Yeah, that was a fantastic way of doing it. Black and white,
sort of, do you know
not
what?
The same, you know,
really close, but it's grounded authentic acting
Yeah.
and writing style and delivery. It's not that thing of like, hey, who's that over there? Is that Jimmy Ringo coming into town? Why, he's the finest gunslinger in the West. In that weird, over-the-top, like, actory delivery, really stagey delivery that just no one actually speaks like in normal life.
What are you doing here, Jimmy? It's about to have a drink. How about it? No, thanks. Marshal Mark Strett. Well, that ain't a good one.
Like, imagine in the 60s and 70s, it must have been actually such a breath of fresh air to see people on the screen acting the way people actually act in real life. I wonder if it took a few decades for people of enjoying that kind of cinema, for people to be able to look back on the 50s with love.
Like anything in life, and you can include films in it, people are very resistant to change. When Bob Dylan went from acoustic to electric, they all kicked off. You know, when silent movies moved to talkies, everyone kicked off. So in the benefit of hindsight, you learn to love things more. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that one, Declan. The reason I chose this film, me and you review films that we would talk to our friends and be like, I'm not watching a 50s Western, like no one would even bother, you know. They'd be like, no way, man. So they'd be so used to like the CGI, and it would be quite a culture shock, I think, for them to actually sit down and watch a 50s film. Western's my favourite genre. I feel like I've seen like loads of films, but when it comes to like a certain era, 40s, 50s, I'm pretty poor, so I'm trying to expand on that. And you know, I looked at this and it was getting glowing reviews, and what I liked about it was only like 1 hour 25, and in that 1 hour 25 I've noticed that 50s films sometimes are quite short. Not all of them, of course, but they're quite short in length compared to like the 4-hour opus epics you get today. And it was just fantastic the way it fit so much in 1 hour 25. Like, I circled back to the way it started. You know, films now sometimes have a really elongated opening. Let's look at Raiders of the Lost Ark. What an opening scene, possibly one of the best in cinema, where the tension of he's putting the statue in, and you know, the arrows. And this one just said, back in this era, Wyatt Earp and Billy the Kid were the most famous people, and life could be diminished in like a flick of an arm or seconds, but the best gunslinger by reputation is Ringo, a lean Texan. And it just set up the film just from that bit of text on the screen, and I thought, how refreshing. Like, it can be that simple.
It's incredibly simplistic, and it's actually one of the things that Star Wars was doing a homage to, because not as many people realize nowadays that Star Wars was actually one of the first homage films. It was a homage to the kind of 1950s ridiculous space operas, you know, a nod to other sci-fi from that era. So that's why it has that opening title cards, which at the time was a really outdated, unusual thing. So outdated that I assume most people would have realized it was interesting and cool, the fact that he'd gone back and used that really old trope. The same way Indiana Jones is a classic throwback to the 1950s Saturday morning adventure shows that used to be on. Yeah, so the intro's great and it sets you up, and we get straight into a gunfight. But it's not the kind of gunfight you might be expecting, especially not the one I was expecting when I thought it was Lee Van Cleef from the poster. You're getting fucking shitloads of shootouts. But you don't get that in this. When we meet Jimmy Ringo in the story, he's already an older man, and he's already changed. He's already calmed down a lot, and he's actually haunted by the infamous reputation that kind of precedes him everywhere he goes. Every town he walks into, all the young boys are like wanting to get a look at him, and they you know, they want to play guns with each other as they're talking about like the famous Jimmy Ringo myths and stories that they've heard. And the local tough guy always wants to pick a fight with him whenever he comes into town. The local law, sheriff or marshal will want to drive him out of town the moment he gets there, not give him a moment's peace. And you get the feeling from people who actually did know him back in the past that he's calmed down a lot. He used to be cocky. He used to probably really enjoy the fact that his reputation preceded him everywhere he went. But now he just seems more annoyed by it. And you see it in the opening scene where this dumb, idiot, young blonde guy picks a fight with him straight away.
He comes in the bar, they're all whispering, that's Jimmy Ringo. And then this brash, like, young man is like just thinking in his head, he's not that fast, I'll take him out. And then all the others on the table are like, leave it, leave it, leave it.
Jimmy Ringo is trying to avoid violence at any cost. First he tries being meek, the guy's taunting him at the bar and he just tries to sort of keep his head down and ignore it. Then he tries to be stern and like just tell him, hey, fuck off, like stop fucking about, like I'm serious here. But the guy is just not having it. Eventually the guy goes for his gun and he shoots him dead.
What are you trying to do, show off in front of your friends?
Are you ready to back up that remark or not?
What about this? Ain't some of you fellas in charge of this donkey?
I'm telling you, Mr. Ringo.
Eddie don't mean no real harm, Mr. Ringo.
Then let Eddie keep his big ugly nose out of my business if he don't want to get it slapped.
The guys from the start is trying to get at his ego to provoke him. He wants to see what reaction he can get out of him. Jimmy Ringo's ego is just completely untouchable. He doesn't react at all. But the moment he turns the tables on him and goes after the young man's ego, he immediately draws. He draws, so it's self-defense. Everyone saw it, so he's not going to get done. But you see, he didn't want to do it, and he's disappointed he had to do it. And he's disappointed, like, yet again, he just needs to leave town the moment he came into it.
What made me laugh about this is the way he was insulting him. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was like, you're a pussy huckleberry or something.
No, because I googled it, because I was like, because he said it so many times. If he said it once, you'd just be like, what was that? But it was a frazzle bottom.
Yes, that was it.
How about a drink, Mr. Frazzlebottom?
No, thanks.
How's that, Mr. Frazzlebottom?
Eddie, please.
Please what? I asked the man to have a drink with me. What's wrong with that? How about it, Mr. Frazzlebottom? I knew Mr. Frazzlebottom wasn't going to pass up a free one.
And I went Googling it. Someone was claiming it was a term that meant someone that looks like old and fatigued and kind of like a down and out, like maybe like the local drunk or the local kind of down and out in the town.
Sounds like a fucking creature from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've seen countless westerns. The law of the West is, it doesn't matter if you kill someone. Whoever draws first is in the wrong.
And if there's one witness, then there won't even be an investigation.
Yeah.
So
he just points around the bar and goes, you all saw that, didn't you? And they're like, yeah, no no one does anything. So he kills him. The barman, who seems to know Jimmy Ringo, says, yeah, you was in the right, self-defense. I saw he drew first, but leave town anyway because he's got 3 brothers. I'm thinking, Declan, is this gonna now become like a revenge film where he's like fighting against the 3 brothers? I'm sitting there like, this is gonna be great. But
like you said, you see the 3 brothers suiting up, ready to go. They're about to leave town, and then fucking Jimmy Ringo emerges out of nowhere like a ninja above them on some giant rock. 2 guns on them. He shoots 1 gun out of their hands. He makes them lay down their weapons, back off from their horses. He slaps the back of their horse's ass. They go running off into the desert, so they're fucked. Not completely fucked. He's not leaving them to die, but he's like, it's 3 days walked back to town. I'm heading off. Don't follow me. But they're promising, like, we're going to come for you. We're not going to give up.
I'm warning you, Ringo. We're gonna get you yet.
Yeah, I know. I heard that before, too.
You had no right to throw down on a boy like Eddie.
What was I supposed to do? Just stand there and let that little boy shoot me full of holes? Now, come on, get out of here.
No more than a kid.
Which is always dumb. I'm like, why would you say that? Just be like, thanks, man, I'll leave you alone now, and then go after him. But, it's Western logic. I'm a pussy, obviously, modern day pussy. But they're telling him, no, we're going to keep coming for you. But he doesn't kill him. And it's interesting because we've had things you wouldn't expect in this sort of film. In a Western called The Gunfighter, he's done everything he can to talk himself out of the fight. Then when these brothers are going after revenge in the next scene, he again doesn't kill him because he doesn't have to, and lets him go even though they vowed to come after and kill him for revenge. At first I thought it was just a cool way of filming it, where in the opening shootout with the 4th brother, you don't see Jimmy Ringo draw. It cuts to the other guy as he draws his gun and he gets shot first. But throughout the rest of the film, anytime Jimmy Ringo shoots his gun, which actually isn't that often, you never see him draw it, not once. And it's a great way of setting up that whole thing of there's this myth that he's the fastest drawer. No one can draw faster than him. And it's brilliant to never show it. And when you do see it, you only see it sort of once, and it's sort of in the distance, and he's at a weird angle, so you don't really see it. So it's kind of cock teasing you the whole time of this guy's the fastest drawer. So fast you never even see it.
I like that because it leaves it open, because if you did see it, you'd be like, it's not even that fast. Like, do you know what I mean? I've discussed with you about watching a film and not knowing anything about it based on the title, and just been like to you on previous reviews actually, I was expecting it to be like this or like that, but I found it very refreshing. Gunfighter, the OK Corral, or the Alamo, or Wild Bunch, Actually, Wild Bunch is probably the best comparison to this film, because it's totally the other way. It really is, blowing people up and shooting them with Gatling guns and machine guns. I wasn't disappointed when there was hardly any gunfights. I was enthralled by it, and that's like a testament, I guess, to the direction, Gregory Peck's charisma. Because I could have walked away from this and been like, he's meant to be the fastest guy in the whole of the West, and he isn't that good. But I thought, what a guy, man. He's trying his best not to get back to that. Brilliant 90s Western, probably one of the best Westerns ever made. Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven. I wondered if he's seen this and looked at it like a grizzled old bounty Westerner, tries to escape his past but gets pulled back into his old lifestyle. It was exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of similarities. You're right there, actually. That's a good shout. But yeah, you talked about Gregory Peck's charisma, and it is perfect casting for this, because you hear so many times said throughout this film, people going, he doesn't look so tough. He seemed nice enough. Is he really blah, blah, blah?
What does he look like?
He's a kind of a natural man. He don't look much different from a lot of other fellas.
He looks mighty average to be such a big man.
You don't look so tough to me.
He don't look so tough to me. Yeah. That's the way it always starts.
He don't look so tough to somebody. Except with this somebody, it's going to stop right there, too.
A lot of the time, toughest kind of people aren't the loud, brash people. I mean, sometimes they are.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, they're not. Like whenever you see like a guy who's been in the SAS, they don't look like a nerd, but they don't necessarily, personality-wise, come across like they like that. A lot of the time, the toughest people, when they really know they're tough, like it's been exhibited, it's been tested, they know it. They're some of the nicest people because they know they can be nice. They're not being nice because they kind of think, well, don't want to get into an argument. They're genuinely being nice. And Gregory Peck is great at that. I've never thought of him as a tough character, but he exudes that sort of competent confidence that comes with knowing he's a fucking badass in this film.
Great examples of that in cinema. 2 pop to mind. The Terminator.
Yeah.
Never fucking says a word in the first film. And Paddy Constantine's character from Dead Man's Shoes.
Yeah. that's a good
Very,
one.
very quiet, very unassuming, but that air of I'm gonna fuck you up if you mess.
fucking
Yeah.
If I was you, I'm getting up the car and fuck off.
You can't. You know, sometimes at the start of these westerns, there's loads of examples. You see the lone guy on a horse, the town in the distance. You know, they're ambling in. They're all like haven't drank water for like 50 days and somehow still alive. There's no reason why they're doing it, but this gives you a reason behind his actions.
Because I ain't leaving here till you get a hold of Peggy for me.
And what if she don't want to talk to you?
You let her do the deciding about that.
Will you go then, if I tell her?
I told you I would.
You have that background motivation for him. It's also good because there's an element of suspense. It's like we always talk about Hitchcock saying that whole classic thing of if you show something to the audience that the characters aren't aware of necessarily, and you know there's that impending doom of something bad might happen, but they don't, and that creates suspense. Like you've alluded to, he's come back into town because he wants to get back with his missus. You know, he has a son and a missus, and, you know, she's a school teacher now and she still loves him, but she's freaked out by him and scared of him and doesn't want to get tangled up with him, but he's changed now and he wants to settle down and he's done killing people. So he wants to chill out with his wife and just have a normal life. But in the background, we've seen that the three brothers, rather than heading home, they're following him on foot. So we know they're going to take ages to get there. You've also got the local tough guy in town, Hunt Bromley, who is kind of a young upstart. Again, like Unforgiven, he's a bit like the young wannabe famous gunslinger who's actually doesn't cut the mustard when it comes to it. He's more romanticised the idea of it. He has got a hard-on for Jimmy Ringo. He wants to prove himself. He's the guy in this town who's decided, oh, he doesn't look so tough, maybe I'll make a name for myself. So you've got all these potential obstacles and threats up in the air juggling around as Jimmy Ringo just sort of sits in a bar chatting. He just spends 90% of this film just hanging around in this saloon.
Well, it's that murderer, of course.
What murder?
Well, that's Jimmy Ringo. Well, haven't you heard?
Where's Jimmy Ringo?
Sitting right over there in the palace bar, just as big as you please. We're going straight to Mrs. Pennyfeather right now.
News is getting around that Jimmy Ringo, the notorious gunslinger, is in town, and it's not long before it gets to a local man who's seemingly got the impression that his son was killed by Jimmy Ringo, although it turns out Jimmy Ringo denies it. While Jimmy Ringo's waiting in that bar, he's gone upstairs in his room opposite and is waiting with a rifle ready to shoot him the moment he walks out.
All I know is Ringo killed my boy, and I'm going to kill Ringo just as soon as he walks out that door.
But he's also got some allies in the town. One of his old gang members says, oh, you're right, like, I haven't seen you in however long. Like, we'd embrace each other if we hadn't seen each other in months. And then he just moves his coat and he's got like a marshal's badge and he's like, what? Like, so he has now become like the marshal of the town. So
he's also a badass.
He's
character
also
as
a badass. Like, is Ringo? I should have researched this. Did this guy exist?
So it was based on someone called Johnny Ringo,
right?
And Johnny Ringo was more like you'd imagine a real life character like this being, in that he wasn't Han Solo in George Lucas's re-edited version where he doesn't shoot to the other alien shoots kind of character. He was kind of a merciless murderer, killing people at will. There was no like honourable, don't shoot till they draw first. He killed people all the time. He was in gangs, he was in shootouts, and he actually died after a 2-week drinking binge and committing suicide by a tree.
Oh.
So loosely based, I think they more just took the cool name.
Which I never fucking asked. But it's ruined the legend. Like, you got to think these gunslingers are like the celebrities of the day. So it'd be like me and you being like, oh, Messi's better than Ronaldo, or Ronaldo's better than Messi, but Pele was the best.
Did you ever meet Wyatt Earp?
Yeah, I've seen him once or twice.
Is he the toughest man you ever saw?
The bunch I run with, we just spanked Wyatt Earp's britches with his own pistol.
Really?
Why, the real tough ones will laugh at Earp.
Every town he goes into, they're like whispering, oh, it's Jimmy Ringo. But I like it how like the little kids and people go past like, but you're not as good as Wyatt Earp. Yeah, that I really enjoyed.
Because that's funny, because like you said, all the kids are kind of like massing. Like the school teacher who we know is his missus is annoyed because like none of the boys showed up, so she lets the girls go home early, and she finds out it's because all the boys are hanging around the saloon where Jimmy Ringo's staying by himself. The marshal's, his old friend's been like, look, I love you, you're my old mate, but you got to leave town because you're trouble. And he says, I'm not leaving town till you at least ask Peggy, my old missus, to come speak to me. So he goes off to see her. In the meantime, all the lads have shown up outside the saloon and they're all like going crazy. They want to get a look at him. They're all excited. And Jimmy Ringo doesn't realise that his son is actually out there with him.
Because they actually used to do this. Like, you know, you can pay to see a footballer, like, sign something. Retired gunslingers would go about in a showman's troupe and, like, shoot targets and, like, gun them down. And
that was how
like,
Robert Ford got killed finally after years. Someone shot him while he was doing one of those shows.
And everyone would be like, whoa, he is actually really fast. Like, but he was much faster before he got old.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
like the Harlem Globetrotters still going around, like...
His now focus is get back with his wife and find out more about his son. He runs into an old friend in the bar. He's asking like more information about the son. He knows nothing about him, and you can see how long he's been away doing his business and gunning people down and doing bounties or whatever. Because he says, "How old is my son? Like what grade is he in?" And she says, "Oh, 9, 8.5." And there's a scene later on where he meets the son, and he says, "Oh, you're about 8.5, aren't you?" And the son goes, "How do you know?" And he goes, "I just know things like this."
The screenplay and the structure's really good. You know, it's a short film, like it's an hour and 20-minute runtime, like you said. And a lot of time, these sort of films, there's one plot line, there's not really time for subplots. But in this film, it's juggling a lot. We're following the main character, Jimmy Ringo, but then you've got all those other potential threats and obstacles that are encroaching on him throughout the film, like we said. Then you've also got these lovely little just side moments. As the marshal's walking over to see about something in town, he walks past these two old drunk men fighting in the mud. And the other guys who are sort of looking on board are saying, "Oh, this is the worst fight I've ever seen. This is terrible." And then on his way back, he throws a bucket of water on them. And there's constant moments where we're cutting to all the gossiping hens in town and all the old biddies that are just running around and bitching about Johnny Ringo the whole time. And there's a good moment where Johnny Ringo's actually apprehended the man opposite the saloon with the rifle. He's managed to sneak round the back and put a gun on him. And he's basically said, "Look, I didn't kill your son. Don't know who did, but I can't trust you here until I leave, so I'm locking you up in the local prison." He locks him up there. Again, talking his way out of a problem rather than actually getting into a gunfight. But he puts him in prison and all the old biddies come in and they're like, "Are you the new deputy? Like, what's going on here? Are we going to hang this man? Are we going to do this? Blah, blah, blah." And it's not until the marshal comes in, he reveals that they've been talking to Johnny Ringo the whole time.
Shoot him down like a dog.
Exactly, ma'am.
That sounds very sensible. What do you say, ladies?
Oh, that's very gentlemen.
Oh, well, then that's the way we'll have it, Marshal. Thank you very much. That's a very reasonable, intelligent idea.
Don't thank me, ma'am. Thank Mr. Ringo.
Oh, but of course. Thank you very much, Mr. Ringo. Mr. Ringo! Ladies, please. Come on. Ladies.
You can see they're freaked out, but they're also a bit like, "Oh, seemed nice enough. Like he was actually, you could chat to him. He wasn't some bloodthirsty, psychotic killer." But yeah, the film really does a good job of juggling all these things. And it all comes to a head as Peggy, his wife, finally does come to meet him. And she's like, "I love you, but, with my son, I can't trust that you've changed. Like, what, it will be putting him in danger. People will be hunting for you everywhere you go. We'll always be looking over our shoulder." And he's like, "Fuck." But he's kind of like, "Fine, but I want to meet him. I want to meet my son once, even if he doesn't know who I am." And it's a great scene where they meet each other and he's sizing them up. The young lad's kind of in awe of like, "Why the fuck am I meeting Jimmy Ringo? What's going on?" And Jimmy's kind of imparting lessons on him without the young lad even necessarily knowing. He's kind of like dropping seeds in his mind of, don't believe this shite about, what a tough guy is or what they should do, or the brash guy is the tough guy. You got to do this or that to be a man. He says like, "I want you to round up all the kids and take them away from there because, they shouldn't be looking up to me or that sort of man. And I chose you because I was told you're the smartest kid in town." And it's just a nice little moment. Like it's one-sided closure because the son doesn't know, obviously, but it's just a really well-written scene.
He's an 8-year-old, 8.5, as we had already found out. He bursts through the door in excitement and he goes, "You can't be Jimmy Ringo." And he turns around and goes, "Why not?" He goes, "Because you would have drew and shot me straight away." And this is a real show of his character because he kind of like kneels down like onto the son's level and goes, "No, you never draw on an unarmed person. You always wait for them to draw first and make it fair." So that really like sums up, he's not a bad person at all. And again, great scene,
Wouldn't go that far. Like he is a murderer.
Is. Yeah,
like I'm obviously in movie terms, I'm with him because he's the main character. It's played by Gregory Peck.
People.
He's got a cool mustache. I love him. But he is a murderer. I don't know if I feel bad for him. He deserves the reputation he's earned. And that's kind of the point of the film because he's saying the whole time, he's looking at these younger upstarts and tough guys in towns that are trying to pick a fight with him. And he's not even necessarily angry at him. He's kind of seeing himself earlier on Was I that dumb? Was I that annoying? Was I that cocky? Was I that stupid? Was I that obnoxious? And you see as the scene's going on, he's finally going to leave town, and you've got the three brothers appear, and they're like looking down at him with their rifles, and you're like, oh fuck, he's going to shoot. But then the deputy finds he's got his gun on them from behind, and he makes them lay down their weapons, and I was thinking like, oh, that's kind of, are they going to talk it out? That's kind of anticlimactic. And then just as you see Jimmy Ringo riding off, leaving town, going to the next town, into the desert, and that fucking dickhead Hunt Bromley comes out from behind a shack and shoots at him, hits Jimmy Ringo a few times, he falls off his horse, and he's sat there dying. Hunt Bromley's dragged over by the guys, and they're saying, we'll hang him up for this. And we never see it, because we don't see it properly. It looks like he might have been trying to, but I'm pretty sure he's lying. But Jimmy Ringo claims that he drew first, meaning that Hunt Bromley was shooting in self-defense, which he obviously wasn't. And he's kind of like, I don't need any help from you, blah, blah, blah. But Gregory Peck delivers a great speech where he's basically saying, nah, you want to be the idiot, you want to lead the same dumb life I've lived, then go ahead, but you're going to hate it, you're going to regret it, and you're going to live a terrible life. You're going to be always expecting death around the corner. You're going to always be looking over your shoulder for the law. You wanted a dumb life, you got it.
So don't thank me yet, partner. You'll see what I mean. Just wait.
Inside a barn, the marshal's slapping the shit out of him, and he says, you don't even know the half of it, like, it's just gonna get your life, just as Gregory Peck says, your life's just gonna be unlivable now, like, you wanted this fame, have it, you know.
And it's perfect closure for that moment and that character. But interestingly, the original script was just he just gets arrested and that's it. And it was actually the studio head, or one of the studio execs, who was like, that's shit, like, you can't have that. And he forced those rewrites into the story. And I gotta say, like, it's one of them moments where the producer sticking their nose in was actually for the benefit of the film, because that's a much better, much more interesting, much smarter way to close out that subplot.
You're gonna get it exactly like you give it to him. Because there's 1,000 cheap, dirty, crooked little squirts like you waiting right now for the chance to kill the man that killed Jimmy Ringo. But it ain't gonna be his, sonny. Not in my territory. So get going now.
Before Hunter Bromley is a little sneaky snake and shoots him, we actually get a scene where we get an understanding of his intentions. He's getting shaved in the barber shop, and he's saying to the barber shop, no, I can take him. No, I can take him. Like, and he's shaving him, and the barber goes, but you haven't killed people like Ringo's killed people. And he's going, I don't believe it, you know, I don't believe it. The barber just goes, well, you can call it a coincidence, but everywhere Ringo's gone, the bodies followed. Basically, he loses because he can't win the battle with his ego. That sums it up.
There he is. Charlie's got him. There he is. Charlie's got him. Ah, shucks. That's just Hunt Bromley. Ringo wouldn't spit on Hunt Bromley.
Come on.
You know, as you said, Ringo's not a nice person, but at least he's got honour. In a way.
He does. He'll honourably murder, mass murder people.
Yeah. But the final scene, poor Jimmy Ringo's funeral, and, you know, we see outside, the whole town is trying to go, probably people from towns over trying to say goodbye to this fabled legend. His wife comes to the door. The marshal's in there to say goodbye to his long best friend, you know. It ends with the congregation singing a hymn, and then a horse rider riding off into the distance, and then the credits rolling. It's just fantastic. What an ending.
Yeah, and like you said, it was a great final monologue. I feel like monologues were easier, or maybe felt more profound in this era of filmmaking, because sometimes nowadays it's really hard to slip in a monologue because people are speaking so naturalistically. The moment they start delivering a monologue, your brain goes, oh, this is a monologue. Whereas in those days, they would start speaking like they're delivering a speech, but it wouldn't matter because the whole film kind of sounds like that. But yeah, great monologue. And do you recommend The Gunfighter?
I fully recommend it. As I said, if you had a hard day at work, you want to watch a film, but you don't want to watch a 4-hour film, you want something concise and to the point, I couldn't go wrong with recommending this. 1 hour 25, fits so much into the runtime. Gregory Peck is charismatic. He's got that real 50s nostalgia, that lovely soundtrack, and it's just a perfect film overall. It's one of the best westerns I've seen from this period.
If you're down with 1950s films, then absolutely, this is an easy recommendation for The Gunfighter.
There he is. Charlie's got him. There he is. Charlie's got him. Ah, shucks. That's just Hunt Bromley. Ringo wouldn't spit on Hunt Bromley.
Come on.